One of the things that I really enjoy doing at the end of each year is reflect. I like to reflect on my craft as a teacher. I like to reflect on how I interacted with my peers. I like to think about how I interacted with students. I mean, a time of reflection allows me to be able to grow in so many different areas. And so this year was no different. However, this year I am sharing some of my reflection with all of you. I did a video last summer where I talked about how I was leaving my school district and I was moving to a different district. And so I can have this video up here for you guys to go and check out if you want to see the reason for why I left that previous district to go somewhere else. It is literally 12 minutes apart from one another. So they are very, very close because in the north, we don't have counties, we have smaller districts within a large county. And in the south, it's, you have very big counties of schools. So I really wanted to take this time to reflect on everything that has happened over the course of this past year and how my transition went. And I wanted to share that with all of you because I think it's important and listening to what transitions are like, because there can be a little bit of nervousness when it comes to, do I want to leave my school? Do I want to go somewhere else? Is it going to be better anywhere else that I go? And so that's what this is. So to get started, I want to mention that I have been teaching now for 11 years. I've just finished off my 11th year, moving on to 12 years of teaching. And in this time frame, I went from a kindergarten teacher in Alabama to a fourth grade teacher in central Pennsylvania, then to a multi-age teacher, which I was teaching fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, then now to a fourth grade ELA teacher. So during this process, I have now switched 3 different schools that I have taught at. So one was a really big drastic change going from kindergarten to fourth grade. And now this one, it was from multi-age to fourth grade, which wasn't as big of a transition for me, but a transition nonetheless. So my moving to one district to another this previous school year, I knew what to expect. I knew what was going to happen. I knew the struggles that I was going to have. And I had a little bit of an upper hand because I had already taught fourth grade ELA and I was really good at teaching fourth grade ELA. That is kind of my passion, my powerhouse portion of me as a teacher. And so I wasn't really concerned about that component. More than anything, it was getting to know the building, getting to know the routines, figuring out, what is it that I need to be doing? What are their expectations of me? And so when I moved, it was 1, a fresh start for me. And then 2, it was just, I knew there was going to be some speed bumps. I knew there was going to be a little bit of getting to know everything. The challenge that came with moving from my previous district to the one that I'm at now is that because I was already tenured under the state of Pennsylvania, or at least this is what, how it worked at my district, but because I was tenured, I didn't necessarily need a mentor. So I had already gone through all of the steps for becoming like a new teacher induction in the state of Pennsylvania. I didn't need to do that again. And so a lot of what I had questions about came to, how do you guys do report cards? What are the expectations for, your fire drills and things like that? That was never communicated to me. And so I had to ask all the questions and I needed to bug people, which really felt horrible on my end because I felt like I was annoying people with my questions because I would constantly clarify to ensure that I was doing the right thing. And I also had to ask the right questions. You know what I mean? So if I didn't ask certain questions, then I would inevitably do it wrong. And so it was really just a year of just me saying, okay, is this how it's supposed to be done? Are you sure that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing? And it was a lot of miscommunication, non-communication feeling as I was moving in as a tenured teacher in the state of Pennsylvania to a different district. Now, luckily, I had a great team of fourth grade teachers who were so supportive. My partner teacher was amazing. She was incredibly helpful so long as I was asking those questions with her. She was more than happy to support me and answer any of those questions that I had. So I felt great in that sense, that I really enjoyed the team that I was working with. The challenges that I started to face, especially at the beginning of the year, and part of this I am to blame, is that I played the comparison game. I would compare my previous district with the one that I'm currently at, and I would say, well, we did it this way, and this is how it was done there. And so I became, in some ways, a little bit bitter about the entire situation that I was in. And it was mainly because there were so many different things that I just wasn't used to. And I have my phone here just for notes. So you might see me looking at my phone as I'm going through this because I don't want to miss anything. But during that time, a lot of the things that I really struggled with was going to be one, schedules. I had a different schedule every single day. And we know that as students, they need routine, they need consistency, and that really was a challenge with students, and it was a challenge for me as well. Like not having a structured set routine that this is what it's going to look like every single day was hard. I also did not have specials every day. And my specials would change. I would have a 15-minute book exchange. I would have, a 45-minute art lesson, a 30-minute health lesson. And so that was another added component that was really, really stressful because I was coming from two different schools where I had a special every single day. And so I always had that planning period. Now, granted, at this school, we have zero collaborations. We are not required to collaborate with our peers. And so that morning time that I have from like 8 to 8:40 is technically my planning period time. But at the same time, you start to build kind of these like little pockets when you're not forced to collaborate with your peers or to attend meetings like on different professional development topics. I didn't have any of that this year. So I was really flying solo, and you almost start to really seclude yourself from others. And I know that this is just my personality type as well, is that I am very happy with just being a hermit and staying in my classroom and not reaching out to anyone. It's a really hard for me to put myself out there and to go visit other rooms and to see what other people are doing. I get into this monotonous routine of just doing what I need to do every single day during that time. So that was very much of a challenge. And so I think having all of those components on top of not really having a definitive curriculum. The district that I'm at was using Lucy Calkins. They still have Lucy Calkins as a guide. I have had a love-hate relationship with Lucy Calkins since I taught kindergarten, and so I knew that that was not the teaching structure that I wanted to follow, and I was given full permission to be able to kind of veer off of Lucy Calkins, which is what I did. But this meant that everybody was doing something a little bit different. And so when you don't have that consistency amongst, your horizontal, which is your grade level team, and also your vertical, meaning like what are the kids coming in at third grade and where do they need to be by the time they get to fifth grade. If there's no consistency in that, you're going to see very small growth. And one of the benefits that I had at teaching multi-age is that I saw a tremendous amount of growth with them because of the fact that we were very consistent from year to year. And so having students be consistent and having that progression has proven, even not only through my own experiences, but through research, that it is so helpful for students to be able to see a huge amount of growth. So that was hard. And I played the comparison game a lot. And I didn't like the way certain things were being done. And I became somewhat of a bitter person at the beginning of the year, that I had to start learning how to just let things go and I did get better, and I am better than where I was. And again, I think my team and the people that I work with played a very, very important role in that component. So now let's talk a little bit about the overall year and how that went for me. So as I mentioned before, this is my 11th year of teaching, and I have to say that this was the most challenging year I have ever experienced in my career. And I have always been the teacher that has prided herself in my behavior management. I have very strong behavior management and also community building. I pride myself in making connections with my students and making sure that they feel loved and accepted, and that they feel as though this is a place where they can learn and support one another. And a lot of the behaviors that I was seeing inside of the classroom are behaviors that I have experienced in all of my career. The challenge was the support. This was the first year in which I felt as though I was not being supported when it came to the behaviors. So there would have been situations that, in my opinion, warranted an office trip, and it takes a lot for me to say, you need to go to the office. I am not one to send my students to the office. What happens in my classroom typically stays in my classroom unless it is something so severe that I cannot handle it in my own room. And so I've had really good communication. I've contacted families. I was having phone calls. I was emailing. I was doing all the things to make sure that I was building community connections, collaborations with families as much as possible. And so during those instances when situations would warrant a trip to the office, nothing would happen. They would come right back to my room, and I was lost at why they were there. And it was such a struggle in a sense that I finally was getting to the point where I would just provide the consequences myself. It was either taking away lunch or doing a lunch detention or taking away recess. And it was so much so that was all I was able to do with these students, is that by the end of it, they were like, doesn't matter. I don't really care about recess. I don't care if I have to sit in the office for lunch. It's not a big deal. That it wasn't being communicated to them that this is serious. And they were not receiving the messaging that they needed to receive. So that was a really big challenge for me when it came to that behaviors, because I wasn't being supported the way that I needed to be supported. On another note, there was a complete lack of communication overall. Just going back to what I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, where I basically had to ask the questions to ensure that I was doing things the way that it needed to be done for this specific school district. And so there was no communication, and it wasn't a, hey, here's what you need to be doing for report cards, or here are the expectations for behavior, or here are the expectations for some of the different drills and how we're going to talk about procedures, and let's get everybody on the same page so that we're all doing things like as a cohesive group. I didn't feel like there was enough of that. I felt as though decisions were being made last minute. It was always left up to, well, what do you think? What do you think you should be doing? Or do whatever kind of you feel like you need to be doing. And to me, that just, one, doesn't communicate leadership, and it doesn't make us all a cohesive group. And so it really starts to kind of hurt you when it comes to building the culture and climate of a specific building. We didn't really have a great culture and climate because everybody was just kind of flying solo and making decisions based off of what they believed needed to be done. So things would change in an instant. I specifically remember one situation where we had writing assessments that I was told that I was supposed to be doing all year long. So I was scoring the writing assessments. Really nothing was being done with the writing assessments. So I was putting them into portfolios. At the end of the year, I had like all these stacks of portfolios that go from one teacher to another, like cumulative, like file type situation. Something that I was very used to because I've done it at every single school. And so we were told, I was asking the questions of, well, what am I putting in these portfolios? The writing assessments. So I had gathered all the writing assessments. I had made a spreadsheet that had all of the different scores in there just in case I needed to reference them. I had made a really nice little cover letter saying 4th grade assessment. I had labeled each and every single one for the specific time of the year that I gave all of those writing assessments. And then I paper clipped them. I put them into the folders. I had it all organized alphabetically, and I sent them into the office. The next day, I got an email saying they're going home. In the drop of a hat, it is like, okay, now we're gonna just change what we've been doing for years and years. And at the very last minute, we're gonna completely change that. And here's what you're gonna do now. I struggle with that because my personality type needs things to be communicated in advance, because I want to plan and make sure that I am done by a certain time frame. So if you say that it's going to be due on a Friday, I want to have it done by like Wednesday at the latest, so that if something was to happen, I have a little bit of buffer room and I don't have to stress about, going past my due date. So it was these types of situations that really made it challenging for me. And again, it was that comparison game that I was doing because I came from a very strong leadership team in my last school district, where we were getting lots of communication on everything that you could possibly imagine. And then I come here and there was very, very little communication. So all of this combination of items that were happening during the school year really had me questioning my choices as an educator. I'm going to be honest, I was regretting for a little bit the decision that I had made of leaving my previous school. And honestly, I don't regret it now. I believe that everything happens in life for a reason. I was meant to leave that previous school to come here to follow a different path. And I am very grateful for some of the things that I have accomplished during this time frame. But I was at a point where I was questioning, and I was like, oh my gosh, did I make the worst decision ever? And so this then led me to, you know what, I'm just going to talk to administrators. And so I followed protocol, guys. I went to my admin, sat down, had a meeting, discussed the concerns that I had when it came to behavior, when it came to curriculum. And then from there, I went to other administrators and I spoke with them, and we have a transition with a superintendent. So I sent an email to the superintendent, had a one-on-one meeting with that superintendent. And so I was doing all of the things that I felt as though I needed to do in order to have my voice heard and my concerns heard. And I am not one to just want to complain. I want to tell you the issues that I'm noticing, but then also provide an idea or a way to find a solution to some of those issues. And so I was fully prepared with, ways to solve some of the problems that I was observing inside of the school. So when I had exhausted all of my contacts, essentially, I started going to board meetings. And I've been going to board meetings since December, I want to say. And I started speaking with board members and trying to have them hear what we need. And there have been changes. I will say that there have been some changes of things that I just didn't understand why they were being done the way that they were being done, communication that wasn't being done in certain ways. And so there have been changes since we've had, this new turn in of our administrators coming through into the district. So I'm very, very grateful and thankful for them and for that. But I think really reflecting on this entire year, I have learned a few lessons. So the first I have learned is that I cannot play the comparison game. I can't do that to this district. It's not fair to this district. It's not fair to the individuals at this district. So I need to stop playing comparison. And I think, I do this in so many different ways. I compare myself to other teachers. I compare myself, to where I was, last year. I compare myself. I compare so many different things, and that internally is my own struggle that I have am constantly working on trying to improve. And so when I find myself playing the comparison game, I have to stop myself and remind myself not to go there, because it's just not good for my mental health in any way, shape, or form. The second lesson that I learned is that we have to speak up. As teachers, we have to start saying more. And I think we can do this in a way that is so respectful and professional. You just have to figure out how to do that. And so in the beginning, I did a lot of listening. I did a lot of note taking, and then slowly but surely I started introducing myself to people and, asking certain questions, and then, voicing some of those concerns. But if we don't, as educators, try to have others hear what we have to say and the concerns that we have, we are never going to improve education. And so collectively as a group, if we are able to one by one say, you know what, I don't think that this is right, and here's why I don't think it's right, and here's where we could possibly go, and maybe even having some form of a compromise or something to that extent, it is so very, very important. Again, you can disagree politely, you can disagree professionally, you just have to figure out the steps in order to make that possible. So those are going to be my two biggest lessons that I have learned from this entire experience. And so I'm going to take these two lessons and I'm going to hopefully carry them in through the next school year. I will say that, after this year, I'm going to just come down and really just relax and enjoy my family, but also pour back into the educators within my Bridging Literacy community. My focus this summer is really to provide as much support and help to those teachers in my community this summer, and really find the spark that I feel like I lost this year when it came to teaching. I really struggled with going to school and just being happy that I was there. There were moments where I was like, I just don't want to be here. I don't want to be there at all. I don't want to be around the kids. Like, I had a very negative viewpoint this year, and I don't want to do that again. And so my whole goal is to find the spark and the joy that I have for education, because I love my job. I love teaching. I love being around my kids. I just need to figure out where that spark is. And so that's going to be my whole goal, is to rejuvenate myself, pour back into my community members, and just learn to love teaching again. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this incredibly rambly video. I wanted to just throw this reflection out there, hopefully watch it again at the beginning of the school year so that I can get ready for this upcoming year. But for right now, I'm just gonna enjoy my summer. So guys, thank you so much for just watching this journey, for joining me on this channel. I really do sincerely appreciate you. It is because of all of you that I am still doing what I'm doing. I could not do this without you at all. So thank you so very much, and I will catch you all next time. Bye.